and welcome back to yet another episode of On the Grid Podcast, episode 10, hitting double figures today. This is our race preview ahead of the Australian Grand Prix. I'm your host, Adrian. Joining me, as usual, is my co-host, Ethan Evans. Ethan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Not looking forward to the early wake up time at the weekend, but yes, I am good.
Yeah, we are Australia, down under. And this week we have not one, but two special guests. I mean, we had two special guests for our first episode, and to hit double figures, why not chuck another two special guests? So joining us is Kel. How are you, Kel?
I'm really good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And joining us as well is Jen. How are you, Jen?
I'm not bad. Thanks for having me as well, guys. It's good to be on.
So for people that may not know, Kel, you and Jen, and another one of your lovely colleagues are from the Girls in the Grandstand podcast. For people who may not know the podcast whatsoever, um, uh, people will know Grandstand, F1, MotoGP, but it is obviously Formula One we are talking about in this podcast. So how did you get started? How did you get going? Give us a bit of background of how you girls started with your podcast.
Well, we met during the first COVID lockdown as we all were obviously stuck at home and everything was sort of online. We can thank F1 Twitter actually for bringing us all together, which is not very often you thank F1 Twitter for something. We just became really fast friends through our love of Formula One. And about a year into our friendship, we all decided, hey, why not? Let's talk about it for everyone else. They might not want to listen to us, but we enjoy it. So we thought, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it.
And Jen, how do you think motorsports in general, Formula One, how do you think your podcast has kind of gone on throughout the lockdown and now as we've kind of seen opening of grandstands, especially for you lot?
Yeah, I feel it's really important for us as girls to have a place to talk about F1, as well as obviously we're all friends. It's great to have a laugh because our podcast is obviously about F1, but most of the time we go off on a tangent waffling about other stuff that doesn't include Formula One. And we want it to feel like more of a FaceTime call or a sit down with friends after a race, talking about the race and stuff like that. So we really enjoy making it and doing it, and we really hope other people enjoy listening and watching us as well.
Absolutely. Even it kind of sounds like our podcast. Tangents, having a laugh, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sounds very good. I'm sure. Hopefully, everyone listening to this, go out and check them out. And yeah.
So let's kind of dissect the news as we usually do during a break. I mean, it's been quite a short break, quite a quick one. But we're back in action. Ollie Bearman. Let's start about Ollie Bearman. Saudi Arabia, kind of unsung hero, should we say, stepped into the Ferrari hot seat for Carlos Sainz. Did a fantastic job getting into the points. And is now a very, very much wanted man. He's been linked with here, there, and everywhere, really. Ethan, let's start off with you. We spoke about Ollie Bearman, obviously, in our race review after Saudi Arabia. But do you see, obviously, he will end up likely getting a seat in 2025. Where do you think he's destined to go? Do you think it might be to like a Haas or to like a back marker, or do you think he might even get thrown into the limelight and get a seat in a bigger team, for example?
I can say with about 95% certainty he's probably going to end up in that Haas. I think Hulkenberg is sought after by Sauber, soon to become Audi, and they obviously want a German driver for the German team. Magnussen as well. He's been good this season, but last season his performances weren't there. So there is a potential for one of those seats to crop up and to get a seat on the grid. And if Haas aren't willing to, then he'll look elsewhere. I'm sure there will be no short supply of teams in for his signature for 2025 and beyond.
Cal, are you of similar thoughts to Ethan? Do you think the Haas seat is kind of destined for Ollie Bearman?
Yeah, I completely agree. I do think that Haas is most likely where he's going to be next year. I mean, he's already part of the Ferrari driver academy, and it just makes sense that he go there. I can't see a top team taking a risk on someone so young straight away with that. Hasn't, I mean, obviously he raced last week and he did an absolutely amazing job, but yeah, I think someone, for example, if you're talking sort of Mercedes, who not have an opening for next season, I don't think that they would take that risk, if I'm honest.
I mean, dare I say, Kimi Antonelli might get that seat, but Williams might come calling instead for Antonelli's signature. Let's sort of move from a calm to a kind of a storm, a thunderstorm, which is a Red Bull thunderstorm. Let's talk a bit about them. I mean, so much chaos happening. Let's begin with Max Verstappen, Ethan's favourite friend, Max Verstappen, who's already won 2 races this year. And his father, Jos Verstappen, was speaking with Toto Wolff. And there's been conversation going on there, potentially with the opening at Mercedes, that Max Verstappen could jump into that Mercedes seat. Ethan, I'm gonna leave this question. I'm gonna leave you out this question because I don't want your kind of your bias, your Mercedes hat on here. I'll go to Jen. Jen, Max Verstappen, Mercedes. Is it likely? Is it a possibility? Do we think it could happen?
I don't know, because there's like so many contracts up this year. It's like, who's going to go where kind of thing. But I don't see Max leaving Red Bull. I just don't. I can't see Max not being a Red Bull boy. But we all know that his dad's very high up in the paddock, shall we say. So we'll see what happens in the off-season next year, but I still think he'll be at Red Bull.
Off-season next year, it could even happen during the summer break. Ethan, I'm going to bring you in. It's just very tempting to just bring you in. I know you're likely to switch over to Ferrari next year because of Lewis Hamilton. But for Mercedes and George Russell, does George Russell need a teammate of Max Verstappen's caliber, or does he need a teammate where he can be kind of on a level playing field? Because we know Max Verstappen is light years ahead of most of the field this season. Do you think that bringing Max Verstappen in with George Russell potentially being the number one anyway could create a bit of instability at Mercedes?
First of all, I'll just preface this by saying I don't see it happening. If you lose Lewis Hamilton, you've got to go for the best, and the best at the minute is Max Verstappen. So you're losing a 7-time world champion, but you're gaining the guy who's won like 50 of the last 51 races or something stupid like that. So if Mercedes are looking for a driver, who better is there than Verstappen? And if they have to break the bank to bring him in, then that's what they'll do. I will just say that if they do bring them in, then you can believe that Red Bull are going to break the bank to bring someone else of that quality in. And to me, the only guy that springs to mind is either Alonso or Leclerc. So you could become a Red Bull fan if that's the case.
Yeah, that's put me in a bit of a predicament. And I don't want to be put in a predicament right now. Let's move on to a merrier topic. Let's move on to Carlos Sainz, Carlitos, smooth operator himself. There's been a bit of an update regarding Sainz, and he should be back. Fingers crossed, everything is okay. His surgery went smooth. It was a smooth operation. Kel, how important do you think Sainz being back in that Ferrari race car is for the Scuderia? Because I mean, he's been one of the most consistent F1 drivers in the last 2 years. How important is that consistency for the Scuderia?
I think consistency for any team is very important. I do think that for Carlos himself, getting back in the car as soon as he possibly can is the best thing. I mean, obviously he needs to make sure that he's recovered fully from his surgery. It has been 2 weeks, so he should be okay. I mean, we can tell from Carlos being in the paddock on Sunday after his operation that these drivers are just a whole different breed of people, aren't they? I mean, if I had just had that surgery, I think I would have been in bed for at least a week. So yeah, I think for Ferrari and for Carlos, it is very, very important that he is back this weekend.
And Jen, for a driver of Carlos Sainz's caliber, any missed race is kind of important. He's in his last season at Ferrari. It's all team science at the moment for himself. He's not bothered about the team, as we saw in Bahrain. He's not bothered about any team orders. He's not bothered about any about that. Do you think it's the same approach heading into Australia? Do you think he might take it a little bit more steady, knowing that the operation is still, the wounds are still slowly healing? Or do you think it's all guns blazing? Carlos Sainz will be back. Maybe we could see a top 5 finish.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Carlos Sainz is coming back with a vengeance. I feel like he's in his last year now. We don't know if he has a seat now. We don't know where he's going, what he's doing. So I feel like him coming back after a weekend out, he's going to try his best to be up there. I really hope he is fully recovered, because getting in a car when you've just had that kind of surgery is not going to be the best. But hopefully he's safe to race. He comes back and he gets a podium. I think would be great for him.
Ollie Behrman is on standby. He is set to do his F2 duties, but he is on standby. I mean, what a capable reserve driver to have there, Ollie Behrman, the man of the people, and a very capable driver. Let's go on to Gunther Steiner. We've not spoken about Gunther in quite a while. I think it's been at least a couple of episodes where Gunther Steiner's been missing from our podcast. He's gone out and said, after Haas dismissing him, and I mean, me and Ethan were both quite upset that he was dismissed. It was a great, fantastic team principal, gave us a load of memories especially with Drive to Survive, namely being the main one. But he's gone on record and said that he's not opposed to a return to the F1 paddock, but it has to be the right project. Ethan, if Gunther Steiner was to come back, let's say next year, for example, in 2025, what would be the right project for him to step into? The Alpine project kind of looks on the horizon, as they're struggling. But do you see him anywhere else? Do you see him maybe in like a director's role or something?
I think that Alpine role might actually be a good fit, because you see what he's done on such a constricted budget. Like you see the how Haas performed in 2022 when they finished, I think it was 6th overall in the drivers, or in the constructors even. Kevin Magnussen got 5th place after 5th place. But so he has shown he's a very capable team principal. I thought it was a very interesting read. I did agree with him to some extent when you look back at it. Maybe he stayed for too long, but he's a very good leader. He's a very good leader of people. He very good at managing the different departments and keeping everybody under one roof satisfied. So I think that Alpine job could be a good opportunity for him. Obviously, they need that bit of stability at the minute because everything that's going on, they're in a bit of turmoil. Looking at other teams on the grid, is there a better fit? Is there another open position within the next 12 months? Possibly not. But then again, if he's saying he's going to wait for the right project, maybe he will be waiting over 12 months. Maybe we could get to 2026, new regulations, and he decides it's time to step back in.
Yeah, Gunther Steiner, it will always be around the paddock, especially during sort of media duties. But it'd be nice to see him back in the paddock and kind of on a hands-on role. Onto a bit more of a somber note. Whilst we're recording this, 20th of March, it's been about 6 days since the 5th anniversary of Charlie Whiting's passing, the F1 race director, that is. Kel, safety was important for Charlie Whiting, and I think he kind of enforced that a lot. He had a fantastic relationship with the drivers, etc., etc. What sort of legacy has Charlie Whiting left on the F1 scene, and on the F1 community as a whole. What do you think? How do you think he's impacted everyone's lives?
You know, the safety in F1 where it is now, you know, you don't know whether it would have happened as soon as it did with Charlie Whiting in the picture. He was a very big advocate for the driver's safety, and as you said, all of the drivers really respected him. They had great relationship. I don't think the drivers have really had that since Charlie Whiting passed, and I think that sort of you can see that with the inconsistency and, you know, everything that we've seen recently. He has left a massive mark and a massive hole in F1, I think.
Jen, what have you made of Charlie Whiting's legacy? I mean, we talk about race directors. We've had the race director after him was Michael Massey, and dare I say he was not up to scratch in some points. But Charlie Whiting, his legacy. How do you think he's impacted the whole F1 landscape?
Yeah, I feel like he's impacted massively on F1, and like Kel said, he's left a massive hole within the F1 community. It's always hard when you lose people around F1 that love F1, and he was like pure F1. So it's really hard, but I think even when someone's gone, the legacy will always live on in some way or another. So yeah, we do miss him, but he's definitely still living on throughout the F1 paddock.
And on to our last bit of news before we kind of look into the Australian Grand Prix. The F1 president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, cleared of any wrongdoing regarding two races in 2023, which was the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Ethan, Saudi Arabia sticks out with obviously Fernando Alonso, and then Las Vegas with the track in itself. What have you made of those two kind of incidents in the past? If let's say we look back 12 or so months and we envisage the Las Vegas Grand Prix and the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, do you think there was any wrongdoing? Do you think there was any tampering in quotation marks? Do you think there was any case that he is in the wrong here?
Well, first and foremost, he's been cleared of any wrongdoing. So we just have to hope that the proper authorities have gone through the process, and it's been a very thorough investigation, and we can only trust in what they're saying. So if he's been cleared of any wrongdoing, then that's how it should be. I think, you know, there was a lot of reports. I don't know how much of it was true, as you never do know. With Saudi Arabia, apparently he wasn't happy that Alonso was given the penalty, so he fought to overturn it. And then I can't remember exactly what happened for Vegas, but I think it was to do with the track and not being ready on time. But I think, like I said, you've got to hope that the FIA have conducted their investigation and that they've done a thorough job of it, and we can only trust in what they're saying.
Let's look ahead of Australia now, and let's look at the two home favourites: Oscar Piastri, Daniel Ricciardo. Last year was obviously Oscar Piastri's first home race in Formula One. Daniel Ricciardo back for another edition. He was out of the seat last year, but he's back in the V-Carb car this season. Kel, I'll go to you. A bit of an Oscar Piastri fanatic, if I say so myself. How do you think Oscar will fare around Melbourne this time around? It might be a completely different race. Last year we saw so many DNFs. This time around it might be a whole lot different. But how important do you think for Oscar, especially with McLaren being there or thereabouts in the top four teams, how important do you think for Oscar it is to kind of keep that consistency, to keep that momentum heading into Melbourne?
Well, I think McLaren are in a very different place this year compared to where they were this time last year. So I think a better result has to be on the cards for Oscar. You know, the home crowd gives you that boost as well. So yeah, I'm really hoping that he does have a really good race. You know, I out qualified Lando at the last race, and he's a really good driver. So yeah, I'm sure he can have a good weekend as long as keeps his nose clean and stays out of any potential chaos as there was last year.
I mean, dare I say, I'm not going to spoil my predictions, but DNFs on the card potentially. Jen, talking about Daniel Ricciardo, obviously a completely different landscape. 12 months ago, he was without a seat. He was in a reserve role. Now he's in a V-carb car for the Visa Cash App Red Bull team. It's still a long name. I don't like it. Can we
No,
call him
it's horrible.
AlphaTauri? Can
Red
we
Bull
call him
Yeah, I
Super Free.
still call him that. They're not changing my
Can we call
name.
him out? Can we call him AlphaTauri? I think we might have to go. What was it? What did I call him last? What did I call him last week, Ethan?
I called them Red Bull
Carbohydrates.
Sugar Free, and you called them V carbohydrates.
Yeah,
We
That's a good one.
carbohydrates.
we call them
carbohydrates.
bicarb at Girls in the Grandstand.
Bicarb. Best name out there.
It's good. That's good. I'm gonna continue to call him a V carbohydrates, I think. But for Daniel Ricciardo, a completely different landscape. He's in a seat. How important is it for him to get on the board, get some points, and show Red Bull what his qualities are like, especially in a home race like this?
Yeah, I think it's so important, as you say, because it's his home race. He'll want to go out there and have probably one of the best races, but he also needs to prove to Red Bull that he deserves that seat next year. Because at the minute, Perez is doing quite a good job in that second seat at Red Bull. He's not struggling as much as he did last year. So it's really up to Danny to go out there and prove and say, look, I'm here and I'm ready for that Red Bull seat.
Ethan, dare I say, Oscar Piastri podium? Is it out of the cards? Is it out of the picture?
Oh, I don't think it is. I don't think it'll be far off. I can't see past the Red Bulls and Ferraris at the minute. I think they got the two strongest cars. But I don't think McLaren are far behind. And based off this season, Piastri is on the pace of Norris, and he's well within a shot.
On to the final segment of this episode 10. Let's go straight into our predictions. Ethan, kick off with your 2-star predictions. What do you think will happen in Melbourne?
So I've gone for Albon points. You know, the Williams was very good there last year. Albon had that crash, obviously, but the Williams was very good. And then I've gone for either a safety car or a red flag, obviously, because of what happened last season.
Kel, what are your 2-star predictions heading into the race?
Well, I've gone specific and said I'm going to say 2 safety cars for the race on Sunday. And I've also put Daniel Ricciardo first points of the season. I think the home race effect will give him a boost.
Jen, and your 2-star predictions?
I've gone for Haas points because he did very well last race. Yeah, last race. And I've also gone for 2 red flags because I feel like it might be a bit of a chaotic race and I need to stay awake, so I'll make it exciting.
Right, everyone's gone relatively similar. So for my 2-star predictions, I've gone the same as Ethan. I've gone Albon points. I think that it's time for good old Alex to bounce back, and I've actually gone 3 DNFs. I do want to see a bit of chaos. You can't go wrong with a bit of chaos, and I do fancy also staying awake during this race. Okay, into qualifying. Ethan, give me your qualifying predictions. Who's on pole? Max Verstappen, I know.
Yeah, so I'll start off with second then, because you're right. Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Piastri. That is the rest of my top 5. Obviously, Verstappen on pole.
Cal, I'm assuming that you've also put Max Verstappen on pole.
I have put Max Verstappen on pole, and then I've gone for Charles second as well. I've gone Perez third. Alonso fourth. He's been very, very quick in qualifying so far this season. And I've put Lando in fifth.
Jen, your qualifying predictions?
Max is obviously going to qualify top, as he always does. And then I've gone Perez, Charles, Lando, and Alonso.
And I've gone completely different. I've gone Logan Sargent on pole. No, I haven't. I've gone Max
Imagine.
Verstappen out. I've gone. I mean, it would have been cheeky, but it's not. I've gone Max Verstappen on pole, Charles second, Sergio Perez in third, Carlos Sainz in fourth, and I've got Oscar Piastri in fifth. I've got high hopes for Oscar. I'll kick off my race predictions. I've not changed my first place, so it's still Max. I've actually gone for Sergio Perez in second. I think Red Bull are way too strong. Charles Leclerc in third, Carlos Sainz to maintain fourth place, and I see Lando Norris pipping Oscar Piastri to fifth place. Ethan, finally, your race predictions.
I've actually gone very similar. So I've also gone for Verstappen and Perez 1 and 2. That Red Bull just looks too good, unfortunately. Leclerc to get a second straight podium and Sainz to return to fourth, and then Piastri to round off the top five.
Kel, onto your predictions for the race.
I have also gone Max Checo for 1-2. Like you said, I think the Red Bulls are just again a bit too strong. I've put Charles in third, I've put Lando in fourth, and I've put Lewis in fifth. I mean, it was tough between Oscar and Lewis. I don't think Sainz is going to be 100%, unfortunately, on Sunday.
And Jen, finally, your race predictions.
I've gone for Max and Perez 1-2 as well, because I just think that Red Bull, you just can't keep up with it. Charles third, Alonso fourth, and Lando Norris to get the fifth.
And that rounds off episode 10 of On the Grid podcast. Kel, Jen, thank you for joining us. Kel, you can give us a promo where we can find you, especially your podcast, etc., etc.
Yeah, so we are Girls in the Grandstand. We are on YouTube, Twitter, or X, whichever you want to call it, and we are on Instagram.
Twitter handles, X handle, Instagram handle.
At Girls in the Grandstand, and on Twitter it's at GIT_Grandstand.
Lovely. Thank you very much for joining us, girls. That's it for episode 10. We'll be back next week looking over the Australian Grand Prix. Thank you for Kel and Jen for joining us. Thank you, Ethan, for joining me once again. Until next time, goodbye.